it's not about the technology. It's about understanding, do you actually understand who you are as a retailer and who your consumer is? And based on that, backing into what other capabilities do we need? And that, my point is more, and we've seen this especially here in the US, there's been this conversation now for a few years about self-checkout. There are companies now saying, actually, we're not going to do that anymore. That happened in the UK. They took all the self-checkout lanes out because that's not who they were. That was not what the customers wanted. It's all gone. And the other part of that is we as consumers have started asking questions like, when are you going to pay me for doing your job? So I think, yes, it's an easy equation. Like, we're going to take people out and we're going to introduce technology. That's great. Looks like a cost saving on paper. How is that actually contributing to the value that your consumer, your customer is looking for you as a specific retailer? Is that why they came to you? Or did you remove one of the key things that they are expecting from you, which is human beings they can talk to and engage with and work with?
Rasmus, you are a senior director at Avanade in the US. And that is one of those big, huge global consultancy and management companies. And I really enjoy your title because it kind of includes IoT, Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, and COE, which I barely know what it actually is. And I thought I'd kick it off by asking, if you would have to bet your money, which of those technologies would you pick?
Well, I think the answer is simple. The same reason I joined my company. It's that everything is about AI. So I joined Avanade 6 years ago as part of the Global Data and AI Center of Excellence. That's the COE.
Yes.
And part of the reason was forward-looking. This is where the action will be. And 6 years ago, I talked about AI, and there was a little bit of talk about IoT. And if you talk to people that are deeply technical, they will say we've done AI since the 60s, and sure, but I'm not sure we've seen it go mainstream. And when I made the choice 6 years ago, it's because of AI. And then, of course, we got into generative AI and all that jazz, and lo and behold, here we are.
So you're saying that you were actually aware of AI 6 years ago?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
That's how I met Avanade. I brought Avanade in to do work for me and us at my prior company. You can find it on LinkedIn if you look at my profile. And I brought Avanade in to do some work in terms of how we could better arm, in our case, our salespeople with prescriptive guidance in terms of what should you actually talk about when you go to the store and you want to tell them, I have this great product that I think you should sell. How do you motivate that? My hypothesis was, well, let's tell them how much more money they're going to make by selling this one product instead of this other product. How do we know how much more money you're going to make? Well, we can make an algorithmic approach based on what we know they're selling, or at least what we're shipping to them and what might come back. And then look at other retailers, outlets, stores, whatever you want to use as your variable. It might be zip code, it might be geography, it might be type of store, banner type, all that jazz. So when you have a similar store, I can tell you that, well, we're selling this in another, 50, 100, 500 stores, and they seem to perform better than you are, and they have this one product that you don't have. So let me offer you that product, and then we can measure the value of selling that versus selling another product that I think is actually not selling well. And then when I come back next, we can look at that data to understand, did I help you make more money?
And that was utilizing AI already then?
Yep.
I mean, I thought I was ahead of the curve, but I'm impressed. All right, so you're also...
It's even more exciting because what you do then is and we're nerding out right away, right?
Yeah, of course.
How I think in my life. My working life at the very least. It's like, and then you look at that at aggregate. What are all the recommendations we're making across all these stores, outlets, companies, whatever that we are working with? How much more money can I offer you as an entire corporation if I'm selling products to you and you have 500 stores, 5,000 stores? And again, if you lead with value, then tech is the lever. So part of my mindset is I love technology, super fascinating, super interesting. No, I'm not the most deeply technical person out there, even though a lot of people always tell me I'm very technical.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm insanely curious about is how can we make life better for human beings, and corporations is sort of an entity of its own there,
Mm-hmm.
by using technology. And technology is the lever for these outcomes. And sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's about satisfaction, sometimes it's about making life better for people. And eventually, and that's what I'm working on right now, how can we make it more life centric for all of us as humans, or consumers in retail, customers in retail, because I want to live life my way. So anything you can do to enable me to live life my way,
Mm-hmm.
be it at work, or at home, or in my personal life, or be a better husband or father or spouse or
Mm-hmm.
employee, whatever it is. So what are the things we can do to make me focus more on the things that will make my life better? And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's back to me, how I define what is better for me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, interesting. So let's see if we can today kind of extract some of that know-how to make life easier for more people out there. But I'm just before jumping to the next topic. So what was the outcome of back in your last job, so to say, when you took in Avanade? Having this algorithmic, I guess at that point in time, it was more machine learning more
Yeah.
than AI. But was it something that were successful in terms of implementation already then?
Yeah. So we had a clear value prop in terms of sort of, if you would do this within a defined store set, there were millions of dollars to be unlocked, which would benefit both parties. So we were selling product, and then of course the
Mm-hmm.
outlet were selling product to the consumer, so customer to consumer, and basically it becomes a win-win-win, because we're getting the right product in the hand of the end consumer.
Yes.
We're getting the right product in the hands of the, or the shelf of the, what we call customer, or call customer at that company. So the
Mm-hmm.
customer was that outlet,
Yeah,
and then we get to sell more product.
got it. All right, cool. So and now and then you were recruited to Avanade to kind of spread that type of insights, I guess, to more retailers. You're also, should be mentioned here, like a retail strategist, right? And I'm wondering, like, if I would be a retailer,
Uh-huh.
especially within my domain, would be more focused on fashion, sports, and apparel, but not necessarily exclusive to that one. And uh, at what, I mean, why and at what stage do you think that I would need your help? You can also consider this from a like a general management consultant perspective, if you don't want to be very specific about you yourself, so to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, here it's a compound question. I'm not sure I have a very distinct answer, which is poor consulting, right? I should be one, two, three, and that's not how I work, because life is complex, and the most complex component in all this is not technology; it's
Mm-hmm.
it's people.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what you said earlier, like you already did this 6 years ago, yeah, it was fully available. It's just, was it attainable? Was there ROI in it? Did people understand it? Are you willing to do it? Are you motivated to do it? What's your corporate culture? Like, there are a lot of factors that play into this,
Yeah.
and retailers, of course, when we focus on them specifically, we always talk about the margins, but it's also the speed of how the business moves, and the trends and consumers. So a lot of
Yeah.
complexity factors. And what I like to tell people about me specifically, not that it's about me, is that if you already know what you're doing and how to do it, you don't need me.
Okay. So
There are,
so
there are hundreds and thousands of people who can do exactly what I want to do, X, and it needs to look like Y. And okay, we
yeah.
have a thing for that. So just go buy it, and you can go buy it. But I think the challenge is, and the opportunity on both sides, is a lot of this actually exists. I
Yes.
don't think that, and we've been actually saying this for years, that the technology is no longer the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it works, it's there, it's capable, it's
Mm-hmm.
doable. You can get things done. There is a belief point. I like to talk about belief points. So there are two of them in my world, oversimplified maybe. But one belief point is that, do I believe the technology exists and works? And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, companies, my neighbors that live right here, they don't even know it. Then I tell them stuff, and they're like, "What? What is that? You can do
Yeah.
that?" Yeah, it's like, you can. There are companies that this is all they do,
Yeah.
but you don't know if like I can send you a video which shows how it works.
Yeah.
But a lot of times as human beings, we want to touch, play, feel. I want to make sure this is real. How does it work? Let me ask questions. I get very curious. So there's a belief point there in the tech. It's not unusual. We have to lead with that. And the other belief point is, do I believe there's value here? And part of that cost component, which is very easy. So usually we get stuck here. Is it the right tech? Should I pick this tech? What about this other tech? Next week, it's a new tech. Why don't we use that tech? And we get stuck in the tech conversation. There's a cost conversation. It should be there, of course. If it costs a gazillion dollars, then maybe it's not worth doing. But I think the real question is, and this is where we usually get stuck in reality, is, okay, tech cost, we can figure that out. Here's what tech works, doesn't work. Here's what doesn't do. This is what roughly it would cost if you have these assumptions. What are you going to do with this? What's the value you're extrapolating? How is it actually going to work and change the life of your employees or customers or consumers or whatever? And I think that part of the conversation is the one that is the most fascinating, because oftentimes we actually jointly as an industry, be it tech or consulting or retailers, we don't fully understand what it is we're trying to do and the opportunity of that, because because of as human beings, we set up organizational structures. I have a focus. This is my role. You started with that, Rasmus. I saw on LinkedIn, this was your role. And we know each other from many years back, so that's a different conversation, right? But that's how organizations work still today. I am the head of X. I am the director of Y. I'm the executive of Z, and I focus on my tower, my silo. So we talk about this one thing. If you actually want to get value, you need to talk about how is this working in unison across these different entities, because you have all these complexities that show up. And if you only look at the one thing, one thing that we haven't talked about, but as another entry point, computer vision and IT. So can you point the camera at the shelf and detect what books I have on my bookshelf? Absolutely. Could you do that years ago? Absolutely. Is there value in that? Maybe. Depends on what you're going to do with it. And I was in a client conversation, this might be 4 years ago, something like that. And the client asked me, which I thought was a very interesting question, because I think this client wanted to it was their litmus test. Can you detect if this red apple is different than that red apple? And I was like,
what?
Like a Red Delicious versus a Gala, whatever, right? And my answer was yes, if that is valuable to you. If you only need to know, do we have red apples here where we intend to have Red Delicious apples? And do we have apples here where we intend to have Gala apples or not? Then you don't need to detect what type of apple it is. You need to detect the space where we have allocated in the planogram or railogram for this product. Do we have enough product or not? If not, take action. What do you want that action to be? Who should capture that action? Who's going to do something about it? And what is the value that you're expecting to lose or gain from doing it or not doing it?
Exactly. Okay. I mean, I think it's clear basically at what point in time and when you have this to basically hire you for a job or a consultancy firm based on kind of already how you laid out the way you look at things and challenge maybe the potential clients, so to say. And it was also interesting to maybe take on that exercise of you coming in and advising, so to say, the management in this cross departments, because I many times agree with you. We work as a software supplier with one department, and then you get stuck, and it's the holistic picture kind of gets lost. But I mean, what about this? I just had an idea. Let's pretend that I am the fashion retailer, and then I'll see if you can advise me on some of these topics that I think I would be having if I would be a fashion retailer. Also, to make it a bit more concrete. So let's say...
I'll drink some water so I can get ready.
Let's say that I'm considering to invest in hiring a tech team, which I know a lot of actually fashion brands are currently like, should we hire our own team to create the software in-house and maybe assemble an AI machine learning team? what do you think? Should I do that if I am a fashion retailer?
I don't know, would be my answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a facet here which plays into that decision, and I know what you're getting at, so I will answer the question eventually. But I think another facet of this is your culture of your organization, and one of the elements there is a lot of times when we talk about innovation, for instance. So the premise of tech is that we need technical people to be able to execute and do stuff for us, and typically, yes, it's the support and maintenance and the service desk, right, which people tend to care a little about, but that's, for many retailers, it's the most important piece, which is part of the challenge for retail, that you're stuck in legacy systems because you don't want to disrupt your own organization, and you can only do that so many times per year because the holiday season will be lost, and then we get into trouble, and then we'll be in the news, and we get compromised because of security issues, and we lost all the credit card information, and now we got a bigger problem, right?
Yeah, so, you already convinced me to not do anything. Just
no, absolutely not, right? But the part there about culture is innovation to me is not innovation to you. Like some companies has an ingrained culture that is more innovative but so not by definition, because you can define it, but that doesn't help with execution. You need the people and the mindset, with the willingness, ability to actually make change happen. Recognizing again what I just said about retail, like there are fundamental core principles of what we can do and touch and when we do it, etc. So I think I would start there. Like, what is your actual culture? What's your willingness, ability to actually drive innovation on your own? And innovation to me, again, is not innovation to you, means that you will find many companies that will say, well, we already did this 5 years ago, so it's super easy. Okay, well, we have never done it. We have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
And if you have no idea how to do it, you have a choice to make. Either I start investing so that in the future I can do more of this on my own because I see value in doing it, which assumes that the culture and the people and the mindset of the organization, which is the entire company, it's not business versus IT, because any company that talks about business and IT, you're not one company, you're two companies.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go in the direction, we're going to start hiring people we need to hire a tech team. Okay. That's almost like I'm raising my small warning flag over here. It's teeny tiny.
I can hear it.
On your birthday cake with strawberry, put a Swedish flag up top. But it's about that, right? So what are you intending to make happen through this? And I think if I simplify, and this might just be my personal view spontaneously, if you're looking for growth and value and innovation in that lens, then there'll be some automation and other efficiency components coming out of it. And you think you have the mindset to do it, and you're actually going to work as one company, not just dump it over to IT and say, fix it. And when you don't fix, it's your problem.
Yes.
Then you can go in the direction of hiring your own internal tech team.
Yeah.
But either way, in any situation, you're going to have to and want to partner, because you're going to be niche capabilities that you can never beat. Unless you have some internal IP that you think you can drive, something that makes you special. And to be clear, every retailer is unique and special, especially when you talk to them themselves.
Yeah.
Well, my grocery store is not the same as this grocery store, and my fashion brand is not the same as this other fashion brand, and etc. Like my mom always said, Rasmus, you're special. Like
yes.
Right? So, and because everybody's special, it also means no one is special. But you're going to have things that are, you need to know your true differentiators. Like, what is that what makes us unique? What makes us truly special, rather than just saying we're special. And then from there, motivate that investment. And then when you need partnerships for niche capabilities, guess what? There's other companies that are going to be special. They do this all day long. It's all they do.
Yes.
And you may not need that capability in-house. You just need to know how to work with them, partner with them, truly partner, and then these needs basically become integrated within your company almost, with clear commercial constructs and all that. And then you use that as a means to drive the rest of the organization.
Okay. So to summarize, if I have not previously invested in having an internal IT tech dev team, then at least to start taking the steps in a way where it's not like a supplying entity to the rest of the business. It's build it in a way where it's going to be core of the culture of the business, is what you're saying, and then
I'll give you an example,
Yes.
a real example without mentioning the client. We work with a client, and this was sort of the conversation. We're going to have more an IT organization. They're going to do all these things, and then there's going to be whatever you call it, portfolio council, something like that. Typically, maybe it's a center of excellence, but it's more of a portfolio council. There's going to be business people making decisions of what's the priority of the organization, right?
Yes.
Because typically organizations might want to spend between 1.5% and 2.5% of revenue on IT, maybe more if you're really trying to drive things and change things. So what do you want these people to spend their time on? Someone needs to tell them, and we're a little bit back to business and IT, but it needs to be a joint conversation.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a starting point for something that where you think you want to change it, and you want to do things different, and you actually want to work in a more integrated fashion because you understand what we used to call the digital transformation in IT and whatever, moving into something else, whatever the new hybrid state is going to be. Well, the assumption there is the business actually will come out and prioritize.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, strategy is about choice, including deciding what not to do. And what clients across any industry, including my own organization, to be fair, is notably not very good at. It's about deciding what not to do. Like everything is always a priority. Everything is always priority 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. But if you're 58, guess what? It's not going to get done. And on the other side, you have a team you're asking to execute, and they're going to be like, okay, Dennis is coming to talk to me, and like, how's my thing going? Well, you're still in number 58.
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be a while until your priority goes up, or all these other things get done.
Yeah.
You're not going to get your thing done.
Yes.
And eventually organizations and people then in the organizations will lose the motivation to try and get their thing done because it doesn't get done. So you need to have that conversation and be clear about that, the way you orchestrate and set up your organization to actually execute. Because if you don't do that and actually follow through with that, they're whatever stakeholder that holds the purse, the wallet.
Yeah.
We have a finite amount of money. There are things sitting here. So you now need to be part of the ownership and the communication around, there's a line here. This stuff is not getting done.
Exactly.
We know that. It's all good. I'm going to go talk to Dennis and say, Dennis is fine. You can focus on something else.
Yeah. No, I think that's good perspective. It's just that it's so easy nowadays to just create a tech hub team internally, and you might get fooled to do it. If you're not careful.
It's not like, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying.
Not exactly. Just be aware.
You hire 10 people, and then in 2 weeks, they're going to be busy. And then you're going to be like, well, I have all these other things. Okay, hire 10 more people. It's fine. If you want to keep investing money, do it. And then, of course, that's where you get into that conversation. Well, it's so slow doing it internally. Yeah, because you asked them to do all these 57 things. And number 58 is going to go, this is when number 58 goes shopping out on the town, right? Like, I found a partner, they can do it much quicker than we can do internally. Absolutely. Yeah. Because the CEO delegated or said explicitly on their own, this is not important because you're part, so don't do it. We don't want to spend money on this. Doesn't matter whose budget is coming from. This is not a priority. And that's if I'm IT, it's not my job. Well, it is my job, but it's not my mandate. I'm not accountable. It's not my money to say to number 58, that's you, Dennis, my apologies, that we're not doing it. You're not a priority. I'm not necessarily the decision maker of that. I'm just telling you this is what our organization has decided. And then the organization needs to decide, well, maybe Dennis has his own money and maybe he should be able to do it. Okay, that's fine. You just need to be clear in that when you go in, like the by design of how you plan to operate and execute, and in intent and the purpose and the challenges with that. And then back to what we started with, which is your retail. You want to make sure that you have control of the stuff you're doing. You don't break stuff. People can't shop. You lose the money. It's a security issue and suddenly you have a problem. So sure, bring in any third-party thing you want. Yeah. Be aware of what happens if that doesn't play out the right way. So here we go. So that we can talk more about, but maybe not today.
Yeah, exactly. There's much to uncover. All right, so let's advise me on another thing. Ready? If you could tell me that there's something that I could stop wasting money on right now, like a technology that I should stop immediately wasting money on for my retail business, what would that be?
That's a good question. So I'll pick one, but again, there's going to be more contextualized answers. I think one thing we're seeing, which makes sense, is that there's a lot of time and effort spent finding information about stuff that maybe shouldn't be that hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
So think documents internally, whatever knowledge repository you might have. The extrapolation of that would be call centers and customer service. So we've seen companies, including retailers, actually make investments in automation of the responses to these more basic questions, the fundamental questions. What's the PTO policy or the vacation policy? How do I do X? Where do I find more about Y? And the same thing happens on the consumer or customer side when they have questions. So our ability to provide a better, more contextualized answer back to individuals who otherwise are chasing after, like, I know it myself. I'm like, even when I'm like, I know someone sent me an email about this and I'm spending like 28 minutes trying to find it and I still can't find it. There's clearly something that I'm missing here, or, well, there are easier ways and better ways to do that. And granted, there's a little bit of investment to do that. But I think the automation of things, using AI and automation tools as much as Microsoft calls it Copilot, whatever you use as your baseline. It extrapolates all the way from sort of the individual level to the organizational level, the functional level within the organization, as much as to consumers and customers asking questions where maybe there's an opportunity there to actually make, again, move a little bit back to life my way. Like, if you can give me more time back, if it's easier for me to get this answer, then whatever I said earlier, 28 minutes becomes 2 minutes or 1 minute. Okay, you saved me almost half an hour. The question with that now is, what do you expect me to do with that additional half hour? And I don't think the answer to that necessarily is to, well, Dennis, I'm going to use you again, Dennis. So Dennis is really good at saving time, and eventually it's like, why do we need Dennis? He's only working 8 hours a week because he saved 32 hours. No, there are other things we could do. But then when you seem to be clear on the skill sets that we need, or like capabilities, abilities of those individuals to do that, because the other conversation, back to where we were a little bit earlier, is another conversation that happens often is, so we're talking about cost savings, simplified, like automation, AI tools, Gen AI vehicles, for that matter. It's a way to sort of reduce workforce if you want. At least the hours we spend doing it can be lessened dramatically. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it. You can buy these tools today off the shelf. They work. No big issues there. What if I told you I could save you 10% and you have a team of 10? So you're going to fire one person now? Or, you know, those things we always talk about that we should do? The 58th thing that you've been talking about?
Yeah.
I just gave you a free person. I gave you an additional person.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not free because you need to make this initial investment, but I gave you one more person who in your, whatever, let's say it's a tech team. You have 10 people, we're saving 10%, you made an investment, so you need to look at ROI and NPV and all of that. But I gave you have a person who already knows, that understands this company, understands that the culture, is hopefully knowledgeable, have the skills that's needed. I just gave you an additional person. What can you do with that person? Because we always have these things that we talk about that we want to do that we never get to. Maybe next year, maybe next quarter, maybe in the future. Yeah, it's good. It's sitting on the list. Eventually we'll get there. Well, guess what you want?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a potential win-win, but we're also seeing, to be clear, we're seeing companies basically reducing their call centers from like, hey, there's one company that I'm not going to mention because it's not my company. I didn't work for them. So I forget exactly what the numbers were, but basically that 800 people in the call center, and now they have 200. So yeah, really good. Good use of AI. We fired 600 people.
Are we talking about Klarna? All right. I won't ask more. Yeah, okay. No, but I see your points. All right. another topic that maybe more future looking now, prediction wise. Let's see if you can nail this one. We'll get back to it in a couple of years. So I run my chain of stores, let's say.
Yeah.
I have multiple. And are they endangered, I'm thinking? And if so, is retail technology the savior or actually speeding their extinction?
Oh, I love this topic. So I don't know the exact percentage points today. We know what 72, 75, 78%, depending on what country you're looking at, of sales come out of stores still.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about e-com like it's this exponential growth. And yes, but anything grows from zero and gets 1% to 2%, you got 100% growth. That's awesome. I think we've seen, again, look at depending on what country, it's stagnating around 15, 17, 22%. So it's been sitting sort of roughly there. So it's still growing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is all of retail is growing.
Yes.
Yeah. So stores are growing and e-com is growing. And depending on who you are and what you want to sell and what you want to do and what you want to talk about and what functional tower you own, we tend to be sort of, well, we focus on ourselves. I run the e-com channel and therefore I talk about e-com and look at the growth of e-com. Therefore we should invest in e-com. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying good. That's great.
Yeah.
We also have these things called stores over here. And most of the sales is coming out of that. And of course, there's some cost to having all the buildings and all the people. And one of my favorite topics is labor is our highest cost. And I'm like, that's great. Do you want to work for a company where you're seen as a cost? You're only a cost. The reason here is a cost. You just cost money.
Yes.
I imagine people who work in stores actually add value to the top line growth and the bottom line to any retailer.
Yes.
So the challenge is more about how do you want to use these people? What do you want to make them focus on?
Yeah.
And no, that might not be let's restock the shelves, even though we need that, because if Rasmus comes in and tries to shop something, I can't find it, then I'll be sad and maybe I'll leave and I won't come back and your loyalty goes away.
Yeah.
But I think the more we can bring capabilities to stores, and now we're back a little bit into the IoT, digital twins, edge compute, all that jazz, right? But also to the employees, which is maybe now these days more about AI capabilities and mobile devices and how do we nudge them to focus on the right thing? And is there Gen AI things that we can bring them as well? Because at the end of the day, life my way, maybe we can get these people working in stores actually have conversations with the humans that come into your store, rather than them being busy doing all this other stuff. So if you focus the conversation that way, and look at this from a value perspective, then I think you get different conversation.
But I mean, what I can see is that there's no value in having a store associate that is stuck behind the counter just managing payments, right? Like taking money. I mean,
we saw the retailer in Belgium.
Yeah.
That started a slow checkout lane. Because this is now we're into another. There's
Let's go.
We also I think we have a little. It's a tangent, but hopefully I connect it back. So there's a little bit of an echo chamber in part of these conversations as well, in terms of who's actually designing and defining the future and saying what we need to do. And I'm not saying frictionless payments is a bad thing. It is not. But it's also there's something where there's a topic around good friction. And there's a researcher at MIT, I think her name is Renee Williamson, something like that. I'll have to double check my brain later, but who wrote about this topic and good friction. So the moment where you actually want to introduce what we call friction, like where do you want this engagement to be? And for many people, especially maybe the elder generation, we talk about people with maybe certain disabilities or other challenges, they need a human being to help them. Like they cannot complete this shopping mission without that human being. The rest of us might be like, well, I'm just using my phone and I'm a digital native. Well, digital native can be any age. You can be 7, 8 years old like my mom and be a digital native, or you can be 12 years old and be it as well. And granted, some of them are more so because they're more used to having these tools. But I think it's a little bit back to what you're inferring, which is, well, you can have an unmanned store if you want. Like there's a company iFi out there that is like, you go somewhere, you just grab your stuff and you walk out and it's all computer vision. So yeah, do that. That's fine. If that works for sort of the population or the segment you're working with and for the products you're trying to sell. But there's also this other conversation, which is what we call and what I call the customer is the only channel.
Mm-hmm.
And what we mean by that is that it's no longer about omnichannel. I decide. I'm the customer. I
Mm-hmm.
decide the channel where I need this to happen in. And sometimes that's ship it to my house.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's curbside pickup. I live in the US. It's like you drive to the store, you pick it up, you park in the parking, and they just walk out, right? Sometimes I want to go to a store. I want to talk to a human being. I want to touch, play, feel product. I
Mm-hmm.
want to get that guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's up to me to decide. And if you cannot deliver in my channel of choice the way I expect this to happen,
Yeah.
similar to the Belgian retailer, similar to iFi unmanned stores, well, guess what? I'm going to find someone who can. And when I
Mm-hmm.
do that, it's like I like to say, I don't know if my wife likes it, but it's like my wife. She doesn't like it when I start dating other people.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Retailers also do not like it when you start dating other retailers because eventually you might become loyal to
Yeah,
someone else. And I think
exactly.
this has been the challenge where it's a challenge for retailers to actually understand their core, who they are,
Mm-hmm.
who they want to be, who they want to be seen as, and based on that, what capabilities do you need to offer, what channels do you need to offer, and how do
Mm-hmm.
we meet the needs of all of the people that we expect to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you might get into this conversation where like, well, why do you, to your little bit pointed comment earlier, like, why do I need someone who's standing there and checking people out? Well,
Yeah.
maybe you do. Maybe that's a
Good
core
friction.
of what people
Yeah.
expect from you. That's why I
Yeah.
go there, because I can actually meet the human being. If I didn't want that or need that, I'll go to this other store. And maybe that's okay, or maybe not.
Yeah. Got it. No, but that was interesting with the a good friction. Never crossed my mind that there is such a thing. Feel
I should send you the link. I'm happy to do.
exactly what I was about to ask. No, but because I guess a lot of retailers right now think about the live shopping. Um, Probably at some point in time there would be more immersive ways of shopping, experiencing the brand as well, VR, AR, and so on. And you have agents and AI that will help you find outfits and just the whole thing about getting the products home and you can try it out. And I'm sure that will also be better and smarter. So
I mean, and that's a little bit building back to what we talked about earlier. Like a
yeah,
lot of this exists here today.
yeah,
Like you can do it today. There's a provider in Japan, convenience stores, who now have convenience stores in the bottom of gigantic skyscrapers.
mm-hmm,
And they have a little robot that will take the orders from the people working,
mm-hmm,
tens of thousands of people working. It will take the order, it will take the elevator up and deliver it.
yeah,
You can do that today if you want to. Granted, in where you live, Dennis,
yeah,
it might not be as applicable, but it's feasible, right? So there's a lot of this going on where it's not about technology. It's about understanding. Do you actually understand who you are as a retailer and who your consumer is? And based on
mm-hmm,
that, backing into what other capabilities do we need?
mm-hmm,
My point is more, and we've seen this especially here in the US. There's been this conversation now for a few years about self checkout. And
yes,
again, I'm a little bit inferring negative, so I'm not going to mention any companies here, but people who maybe watch this or listen to this might quickly pick up on what it is. There are companies now saying, actually, we're not going to do that anymore. That happened in the UK. They took all the self checkout lanes out because that's not who they were. That was not
okay,
what the customers wanted. It's all gone. I think
listen,
they left it in like one store or two stores. There are companies
interesting,
in the US where I live where basically you do a self checkout, you scan yourself out, and if they think it's a misscan, they will basically treat you like you're a thief. Now I
yeah,
ask you: Is that if that happens to you, do you want to go back there, or are you going to tell all your friends to be like, "Oh, they're great"? They just occasionally when there's something that doesn't work, they will chase me down and there'll be a security person telling me, "Oh, you're stealing from us." That is not exactly what's happening. Basically, incurred. And the other
yeah,
part of that is we as consumers have started asking questions like, "When are you going to pay me for doing your job?"
mm-hmm,
So I think, yes, it's an easy equation back to where we were earlier on the customer call center. Like, we're going to take people out and we're going to introduce technology. That's
mm-hmm,
great. Looks like a cost saving on paper. How is that actually contributing to the value that your customer is looking for you as a specific retailer? Is that why they came to you? Or
mm-hmm,
did you just remove one of the key things that they are expecting from you, which is human beings they can talk to and engage with and work with?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because if you're telling me to do the job, then where's my discount? And we only, of course, inflation and all that stuff going on, we're only seeing prices go up.
mm-hmm,
And in the US, there were even companies that started introducing tipping in
Yes.
grocery stores. Like,
Oh wow.
so I walk in on my own. I grab the card. I pick all the things. I
Yeah.
check myself out. You might call me a thief. And at the end of that, you not only want to ask me, push the green head, and were you satisfied with your trip? How much do you
Yeah.
want to take the people working in the store? And
Mhm.
I'm not saying that's, to be clear, that is not about the people working in the store. That is someone who fundamentally
Yeah.
have created a proposition and a narrative that is very much looks good on a CFO spreadsheet. But in
Mhm.
reality, your consumers are asking, what's
Mhm.
going on here?
Yes. No, no, it makes a lot of sense. So I guess the trick is, if my stores is going to be around, that we apply technology in a way so that the unique value propositions that we would offer to the consumers, the shoppers, maybe the ability to touch and feel or to speak to someone or get their service is elevated. That service level, so to say, is elevated.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, service level, yes. It's about
mhm.
the experience you want to drive. But I think it's back to touching on that earlier. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
What's the core of you as a retailer? And
Mhm.
who do you want to be seen as? Because there are clearly retailers out there who wants to be seen as innovative. They do new things. And it's like their entire brand is built on this proposition. And this could be sustainability, it could be innovation, it could be,
Mhm.
whatever, ecotourism, like all of that,
Mhm.
non-profit versus profit, and how we treat our people. Like, and as customers and consumers, we've seen this change, I think, in the past more than 10 years, where it's more evident that my values
Mhm.
need to be aligned, not in every instance, but in those instances where it matters. I expect my values to be integrated with your values. So your
Mhm.
brand values, the way you communicate about your brand, that is also part of me now. So the device you have lying around,
Mhm.
it's part of your brand. This is part of who I am, right?
Yep.
What you're
Yep.
wearing is part of who you are.
Mhm.
What you're buying, maybe even sometimes what you're eating, that's part of
Like,
my personal brand. So my brand, your branding is an extension of me. So
got
if you
it.
fail me, dear retailer, with your brand proposition, you basically lied to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Then you're now representing me bad as well. So I think there's this entire context around how do we, yes, we increase the service level, but it's also about the experience, but ultimately it's about the brand. It's like, who are you
Okay.
portraying? And that's not equally true everywhere. There might be instances where it's like it doesn't matter. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
can I buy, well, I certainly can. I'll buy whatever soap that I buy and it works, I think,
Mhm.
sufficiently well. And my wife might make a totally different choice because it
Yeah.
needs to be more specific. And I love my wife, and it was her birthday yesterday. All good, right? But we all have these things where it matters or doesn't matter. There are certain things that I would buy was like, honey, can we buy this other brand next time? Like, take
Yeah.
ketchup as an example.
Mhm.
I have a wife, 3 kids, and a dog. Ketchup is like, we try and buy different brands of ketchup. That is not the one. And the kids are like, yeah, let's not buy this again.
Yeah.
Not working.
Got it. Okay. So what I'm reading now from you is that stores will be around, and that depending on your uh, the brand that you want to create, that will influence how you will deploy technology. In some cases, it might make fully sense to have self-service checkouts. In other cases, it absolutely will not align with your brand values.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I think it might also differ by store. I think that's the biggest part,
Yeah.
where depending where your store location is and the demographic of that location and all that jazz, your store needs to be different. I'm not talking flagship stores. The ability to actually perform differently using different store banners and types across is it's expensive, but it's also important. And I think the other part here I was going to mention before we move to the next topic,
Yeah.
Dennis, there's even correlation out there saying if you open a store in a new locale,
Yeah.
the traffic to your website increases accordingly.
Yeah.
So there's something about the physical construct of having a store that actually drives more people to your e-com site. So this is
Yeah.
beautiful correlation in all the complexities that we as human beings drive every day.
While asking you for advice, I felt like, oh wow, there's so many options and so much stuff to consider, and like, can't you just give me, like, here's the solution, here's like the blueprint? And then I realized maybe that is why you guys are so big consulting and management firm, because you really paint the picture and the nuances, and that is there a simple solution or not?
No, I mean, yes.
How much of this is a sales trick from an Avanade perspective?
No, well, good question, right? So, of course, there are brilliant point solutions out there. There are things that we talked about earlier, things that do this specific thing uniquely, perfectly, whatever, customized just for you. You're special, you're unique, will make it work, right? So you can obviously do that. And I think what I'm painting the picture of is more about not everyone, not every organization, not every function within an organization, not every individual within that organization might have the full understanding of how this should play out.
I see. But
if you do, and if you're comfortable with, I need exactly this, and here's why, and this is what's going to drive, and here are the motivators and all that jazz, then that's fine. Then you should go. Then you should go buy that thing, and you might not need a company like the one I happen to work for. We might have it, or there might be someone else has it. That's perfectly fine. But I think it's more about the broader conversation around having that understanding and actually be able to execute. Because sometimes what also happens, not unusual, is you buy that one thing and it's awesome, and then you realize it works, and then you're like, oh, we need to do these other things with the one thing we bought, and the one thing you bought is going to be like, yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah. Oh no, okay. I mean, I fully understand, and even we, I mean, also at TouchTech, so to say, when daily work where I am, it is not obvious what is the solution for any given customer. So I can understand that there is a need to really be nuanced and try to figure out what are you about, what is that you want, the goals and so on, and to have the ability to then deliver, I guess, some kind of roadmap and support. So, Rasmus, I would like to wrap up with the last segment here. I think you may know this, Hype or Ripe 2025. So I'll give you 4 or 5, maybe 6 statements. And I really briefly just want to know if you think this is going to be mature enough to be rolled out on a larger scale by 2025 or the next 12 months, or if it's going to be still a hype and not going to be happening. The first one we actually already touched upon a little bit. Self-service checkout solutions in the fashion stores.
Well, I think it's ripe. I think the question is, do the consumers want
it? You say ripe? I mean, I have not really seen so much of it in Europe. Is that more of a US thing?
My point is,
yeah,
it's ripe. It's there. You can do it.
Yes.
But it's back to what we talked about earlier in terms of different banners and all that jazz. Like, who's your consumer?
Okay.
Like, if I buy, let me simplify. This is fashion still, right? If I buy new underwear, do I need help with that? Maybe, maybe not. Can I scare myself out?
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
Yep.
If I'm going to a wedding in 2 months, because we're invited to a wedding in 2 months, and I need to clearly up my wardrobe, guess what? I might need some help.
I see.
And the question there is maybe more.
You can still get. You can still get.
You want me to check myself out? I'm going to talk to you for like 90 minutes to try on all this stuff. And then you're going to hand it to me. You're going to tell me, why don't you check yourself out? Is that really the best customer experience for you? So I think that's the thing, right? Like, what signals are you sending by doing self-checkout? Like, maybe it's perfectly fine. Like, there's going to be a lot of people who'll be like, awesome, I can just going to buy. I'll try it on my own. I know where the fitting room is. This fits. I'll walk out. Let them do that. Perfectly fine. I'll give you that option. There are others who want to. They come to your store for a reason. They want to touch, play, feel, try on products. They might want some guidance. They want some help. Does this look good on me? What do you think? I think that looks great. Maybe you want to try this one. And maybe there's a complementary thing here. So it's an upsell cross-sell motion, but I'm looking for that. That's why I came to you. If I already knew exactly what I wanted, I just go online and buy something from wherever, and then it shows up.
But I don't think they necessarily take each other out. So say you can still get that service, but when it's time to pay, then you don't have to be in a queue waiting for someone to process your payments. Or exactly. Check it out.
To go. But I think my point there is, it's also who's doing the checkout.
I see that good friction.
It could be you. Yeah, it's part of the good friction. I'm helping you, Rasmus, check out because you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on this shopping journey.
Got it. So maybe
that should be part of the motion, because then I feel I was taken care of throughout. That's the branding proposition. We'll help you. We'll get you fitted. We'll get you sorted. Good to go. Let me know if you have any questions.
I see your point. That makes sense.
Right. You can do it. Just figure out what works for you. What do you want to accomplish? And yes, there's going to be people just checking out. Because no, I don't want to wait in line. I have other things to do that are better. Life my way. I check myself out. Good to go. Thank you. Awesome.
Good. Next statement. But remember, hype and ripe with the intention that it will also be implemented this year. So not just that technology is ready, but you believe that it will also be adopted.
I believe the prior one is there. I think that the execution of how we do it can be discussed.
Cool. Hype or ripe? Voice shopping technology.
I think in 2025 it will be hype. More because we're not used to it. Technology is coming. Conversational commerce, be it text-based or voice-based or multimodal, add an image, it's all there. So that's less of the challenge. Not necessarily ready off the shelf. Conversational commerce in and of itself will be ripe in 2025. By end 2025, by NRF January 2026, you're going to see a bunch of players is already doing it. I think this will also come in stores. I think that the challenge here is more, I like to say, the sphere of privacy that we have as individuals these days, most of us, it ends at the end of the reach of our arm. Because at the end of that is my phone. And this is still considered private, even though Google and Facebook and Meta and whatever, they can see everything we do. But this is private to me. If you're on a digital sign in a store, now it's a little bit more public. Maybe I'm not as comfortable, depends on what I'm shopping for, etc. And voice is another layer there where we'll have to see a little bit how that plays out, because if I'm not comfortable being on the big screen in the store, including getting recommendations that are uniquely tailored for me, which we can do, but it's just like, I don't want you to show me the size pants that you have to offer me, because now you told the world what size pants I'm wearing. I'm not comfortable with that. Same thing with voice. Like it's not that I can't talk, but maybe if I sit at home and it's easier, or if there's a more sort of seclusive location where I can be, then maybe I'm comfortable talking. So I don't think the voice component, it will still be hype 2025, but it will come in as an extension of conversational commerce, and conversational commerce is ripe for 2025. It's going to be everywhere by the time we hit NRF next.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll check on that next year.
I'll be back.
Yeah. All right. The Trump government seems to be quite positive towards digital coins. Will I be able to pay for clothes with Bitcoin or any other digital currency?
I think it's ripe. If people want to do it, do it. I don't know.
Do you think
I think the question is, how many people actually today or in 2025, within the next 12 months, will have Bitcoin as part of their digital wallet that they will go into a fashion store with? And are you willing to invest as a retailer into meeting that customer segment? If you are, because you believe there's a sizable group of people who will now, back to my wife, they will stop dating others and start dating you because you introduce Bitcoin or another digital currency as a means of paying, apart from your Apple Wallet and your Google Wallet and your cash and Visa card and MasterCard and Amex and whatever. If that is really going to move the needle, then by all means make it happen. So I think it's ripe. And back to my ecom, like you're probably going to see a 500% increase in people who use say Bitcoin as a payment method. And whether that means it goes from 500 to 2,500 or something else, I don't know. But I think the scale of that is probably, you're probably looking at I speculate, is looking at the higher segment. Where there will be people who will have the Bitcoin. It's just a personal opinion right there. So maybe some of the luxury fashion companies, you should look at that, because there's going to be people who have a lot of money, and a lot of that money is in Bitcoin, and they're going to appreciate the fact that they can maybe offload some of those Bitcoins to you.
Got it. I mean, we'll see if I can go into an H&M store and pay with Bitcoin 2025. So what about AI generated influencers?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it's still a hype. I think they're out there. It's unclear to me, and this is an interesting topic, and you're gonna love the tangent again, but I think it's unclear to me in this journey that we are on, clearly with AI and Gen AI and multimodal and etc. There's a not an end point, but there's a next level in terms of what is the interface we're gonna move to. So we see Meta with the glasses and the Ray-Ban glasses and whatever. So is that going to be the thing? We still have this mobile device. What is our interface actually going to look like? And I haven't seen anyone, and I've looked at avatars, I looked at these companies with holograms, we've seen avatars that look lifelike, we've all seen the deepfake videos. Is that something that we will want as human beings to engage with? Well, eventually probably there'll be a part of that where it's so lifelike that it does the same thing as some companies do with putting automation in instead of having human beings. It offers the same dynamic, right? But I still think there's a human element to things that we can never beat, even with computers, even in the future. I'm not a futurist like that. I'm more a strategist, where there's something innately beautiful and differentiating in the complex nature of human beings engaging and talking together. Like, we're very complex. There's a human ingenuity component.
Yeah.
And while you can certainly train an AI model to behave like a human and maybe even look like a human, and now we get into very futuristic, some people might think dystopian speculations about where we're going to land. So it's all plausible, and it might be sort of something you'll see in, like, at an airport maybe, because there'll be a avatar that guides you and tells you where the store is, or whatever it is you're looking for, the restroom, then where's my gate, etc. But I think it's there, it exists. I think it's a hype for now. I think we won't see any ripe movement on this one until we have someone has actually come up with a plausible future in terms of what does that new interface look like? How do we work together as humans and agents and Gen AI, becoming we truly? Not only as an extension of me, but as an extension of my reality. Where I'm comfortable I'm comfortable and interested and find it actually value enhancing for me to have that conversation with whatever is sitting on this.
You know what I find very interesting about this topic is that my uncle, I mean, this is a 55, 60 years soon, I guess, old guy that suddenly discovered that you can speak to ChatGPT. And now it's kind of his, one of his best friends, discussing car parts and how to, the barbecues. I mean, it's just interesting. So it didn't really replace anyone, but it kind of gave him an outlet while he's at work, a night shift, and just have someone to talk to. And I would just imagine that influencers will basically be these specific roles that they have a personality. You know that they are an AI generated influencer, but they help you kind of vent or ideate, brainstorm a very particular topic.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it definitely is, right? And I think it's a curious future. And now, again, to declare, I'm not a futurist, but I played around with a certain vendor who does this, and they already have influencers or people or personas that you can actually buy that have sort of a certain tone. They have their own avatar, they have their own complexity, they respond a certain way. So we're clearly going to see more and more of this. And it's also interesting. This is actually, we had our own panel the other week with one of our clients, and there was a person on the client side talking about this he had even named his buddy, and they were joking about it in the office that he was talking to his buddy every morning to see what's going on, and the buddy now understands him better because it keeps the context and all that jazz. And we're getting into this curious conversation around. I'm extending this further, like, well, could that be Dennis? Could I buy Dennis the avatar and basically you do a brain dump into it so it's trained on you? So if I want to have this conversation, I can talk to your avatar.
Yeah.
And we can have the because it's basically everything that you give it. And then maybe I say that's great. Can I buy some of that? Can you have, is it your IP? Your brain is your IP. You're selling that. So every time I talk to it, every question I ask, you get whatever 10 cents. And then you basically sell that on the open market. And there's a Dennis avatar who can answer these questions, and you keep training by talking to it. But everything you own is yours. And if a company buys that, then they can get the rights for that. They pay you for every interaction. And then if they don't want it, you pull it out and they can't use it anymore. Like these are all plausible ideas for where we're going to go. But I think there's another element, which is sort of the author authenticity. Like how much of this is actually authentic and how much is that going to matter to me? Maybe in certain instances it doesn't.
Yeah.
In other instances, and I ran into this the other week, there was a extended colleague of ours who had posted something on LinkedIn, and I could just tell by the tone that this didn't sound like this person. And then I saw at the end of it, it said, created in support with and by DeepSeek. So I'm like, everything was, as far as I could tell and understand, it was accurate. It was to point. It's like, but it wasn't this person. It clearly wasn't. Like, so now I'm like, my human reaction was I didn't like it. Like I didn't, not that I didn't trust it, but it didn't feel authentic. And I think at the end of all of this is trust. And the most important thing for human beings to operate in harmony is trust.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it probably means that AI influencers will have to find their unique ways of creating trust, not to try to mimic someone or something, but really to be authentic from their point of view. All right. I mean, it's been a great conversation. I would like to just end with one thing that you have as a unique point of view. I am running my shops in Europe. You obviously have the perspective of both Europe and US. What is the things that they do in retail in US that we should definitely do more of in Europe?
I'm crossing my arms. It's a good question. Tricky, because I don't think anyone has really asked me that before. So usually when I talk about it, if I generalize, which is unfair, because you shouldn't generalize a stereotype, is I think the US, oversimplified, big country, 350 million people, 50 different states, big cities, small cities, whatever, very diverse. So is Europe, to be clear, right? Sometimes I get the impression it's very much focused on the efficiency and the value and the money part.
Where? In US?
Yes, in the US.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is not true in Europe, but I feel in the conversations I'm part of, or maybe this is the bias that comes in when I come in, is because it is more opportunistic. It's a little bit more opportunistic. It's a little bit more, let's test it and see what we learn, and then from there back into it. And I think back to what I talked about earlier, then to simplify and give a more concise answer as we wrap up, it's more about it. I feel in Europe, it's the belief pointed technology is used as a way to innovate and motivate the value case more often than in the US, where the value case more often leads the conversation, and then we'll talk about, okay, how can we figure it out? And then the choice of how you figure out might be more sort of separate as well, because then you get maybe more pointed on one end and more opportunistic and open-ended on the other end.
Cool. All right. Let's end with that. Could be a topic for our next conversation as well to deep dive into. Thank you, Rasmus, so much for joining in. Had had a very nice, insightful advising session with you. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure being here. Good to see you again.
And likewise. Absolutely. Take care for now.